rollerblading again, and I want to show you. So off to the left is the Mendenhall Glacier, and above it is the Juneau Icefield. It's a 1,500 square mile ice field, and the reason why that's here is we are in a rainforest, and that's because the moisture from the sea is warm, and as it hits our shores, it rises and condenses and forms low-level fog, which creates a rainforest. We get up to 110 inches of rain out here on Douglas Island, where I'm at right now. And that forms low-level clouds and fog 2 out of 3 days a year. And that makes about 100 to 110 inches of rain in Juneau, but we get about 100 inches of snow. Most of that snow melts and turns to rain by midday. But up there at the top, that's an ice field, and there's tons of it. It's 1,500 square miles. You can fit the state of Rhode Island in that. And they get up to 100 feet of snow there every year, so it doesn't melt very much. And at the flex gate is where glaciers begin. It's where the ice field overflows, sort of like a giant bathtub overflowing with ice. Gravity's going to force it downward and create deep U-shaped valleys, and glaciers act as a bulldozer, grinding up bedrock and giant house-sized glacial erratic boulders. They grind up that rock, and eventually some turns into smaller rocks and pebbles, and eventually down to glacial silt and glacial flour. And then eventually that mineral-rich sediment flows down the glacial outwash plain and heads to the sea. And the reason why there's a glacial outwash plain is that when the river of ice is moving downwards, it creates friction, which of course creates some melting, and that allows for the water to then flow down to the sea, suspending the mineral-rich sediment. And once it reaches our shoreline, it's also mixed with mineral-rich sediment that's enriched from our salmon dying, providing carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus into the watershed heading to the sea, and our nitrogen-fixing plants and trees like alder, nucalupin, and lichens. So all of that mineral-rich sediment, now that it's at the sea, it reaches these deep U-shaped fjords and their narrow passageways. We have up to a 29-foot tide change here in a 24-hour period. And as those tides change twice a day, in, out, like emptying and filling a bathtub, the mineral-rich sediment is evenly suspended in the water column. And then when we have longer days of sunlight in the spring and summer, that allows for those sun rays to penetrate, creating a process called photosynthesis, which allows for the algae bloom or phytoplankton to begin to grow. And phytoplankton is the baseline of the food chain of the sea. Phytoplankton and zooplankton are fed upon everything in the sea, or they feed on something or something feeds on them that feeds something else in the sea. So it's the baseline of the food web of the sea. And it all starts with our glaciers. So our glaciers are part of the reason why we have the richest sea in the world, the North Pacific Sea, and so are our salmon, and it's all a continuous cycle. So the salmon are able to grow so healthy because partially the mineral-rich sediment from the glaciers is helping the area. And so when they reach sexual maturity, they swim back up those glacial outwash plains and other salmon streams, and they pick their particular river, and then they spawn and die, providing carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus, now fertilizing the land. So the land fertilizes the sea fertilizes the land. It's all one big happy circle. Everything is integral, and everything is symbiotic. Everything needs each other to be here in this food web in Alaska. So I hope you understand a little bit better what creates glaciers and what creates everything else. Enjoy!